Welcome to the Listen to Your Footsteps podcast. I'm your host, Kojo Bafin, and this podcast is an extension of my book, also called Listen to Your Footsteps, which is a collection of essays, reflections, and poetry on things like fatherhood, identity and belonging, growing up, creativity, and the lessons learned. The purpose of this podcast is to gain insight and learn from the journeys that others have taken. I explore the worlds of art, culture, design, business, creativity, and life from the perspective of Africans who are contributing to the redefinition of the continent and who we are. So welcome to the Listen to Your Footsteps podcast. My guest today is David, slaying Goliath Tshabalala. He's a graphic designer, illustrator, and dare I say artist. And I came across David's work on social media particularly, and have been kind of watching his trajectory over the last couple of years. And I'm really looking forward to this conversation. So David, thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Did you always want to be a designer or an illustrator?
I would say so. Although at the time, I think growing up, since like preschool, since I was a very young boy, I always wanted to be an artist. Obviously I think an artist, because at that age, I mean, you don't know the technical sort of requirements of what a graphic designer does per se, but I definitely knew that I wanted to draw and paint for a living and maybe make cartoons, animation as well. It's been a dream of mine.
What sparked that? I mean, where did you grow up?
Where did I grow up?
Where did you grow up and what sparked that? What was in your environment that kind of went, okay, that's something that I want to do. That's something that's available to me.
So I'm from Harrismith, in the Free State, a very small town in the Free State. I think it's just it's best known for being the exact in between Joburg and Durban. So for travelers between Joburg and Durban, Harrismith is almost like a pit stop type of town.
It's also halfway from Maseru to Durban, because I grew up in Maseru and I went to Varsity in Durban. So I know Harrismith because I always, like you're saying, you always stop there to get, to top up the snacks.
Yeah. It's not a town you stop at to sort of enjoy whatever. It's you pass by. So the environment is very, as you can imagine, it sounds very dry and almost uninspiring for an artist. In my opinion. But I was privileged though, just growing up. I think my parents were fairly, I would say, middle class. Like we were very comfortable. So I was just privileged enough to go to a multiracial Jewish sort of preschool called Baraka. And I think at the time, obviously in preschool, some of the activities are, you play with Legos, there's sports, there's sandpits, there's also drawing corners and like painting corners.
Yeah.
And I think my earliest memory is me always wanting to stay a bit longer drawing and painting, and while other kids just wanted to go outside and play. And I think that's where, again, the privilege of being in an environment where the teachers can sort of see your strengths from early on, like your development as a child. They were very hands-on. So I think that's where even my teachers at the time, they encouraged me to just continue, because I would say I was fairly better than the other kids. I was fairly more skilled even from early on. Like, when other kids sort of draw the sun in the corner, or
sure.
I'd try to make the sun actually look real. I'd try, if I draw a human figure, I'd make sure that it looks, I'd reference other pictures and just make sure it looks real. So I just took an extra effort to make sure that my work looks really good. While for other kids, it was just another activity, I think my upbringing and my schooling environment sort of helped hone my skill.
I think sometimes we don't recognize the value in exposure. The value in just knowing that something exists or something's out there.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, again, it's all thanks to my parents and just they're like sacrifices. But by the same token, I'm sure there are other creative kids just like me, like back then, who maybe went into other career paths. It's not to say that others weren't as creative as me per se, but I just knew that I just wanted to do this full time.
Look, I'm a believer in this idea that we are all multifaceted, but we make the decision or we choose the different paths, right? And it's the path that you're willing to put in the work for. that's the path that you pursue. So it doesn't negate somebody else's ability. It's like a sprinter. I used to run. Three of us can be fast naturally, but it's those of us who decide we're going to train every day and work towards something.
Yeah. And I think my mom also being working in education, I've always had that sort of environment where I'm just encouraged just to work on my strengths and just look at my craft or my talent from just a development perspective, like as something that I can actually take on as a career like early on. So I think my mom also helped encourage me. I think that's very like important as well. Like when I wasn't at school or at the preschool, I was still encouraged to just be really good at my hobby, which was drawing at the time.
So is that what you went on to study?
Yeah. See, so that's what like I've always found. I think once I got introduced to, and I suppose with video games and watching animated movies, once I got introduced to sort of animation and the endless possibilities of what you can do if you can draw, I realized that maybe fine art or painting, I found that a bit sort of, for me, a bit boring, not exciting enough, not dynamic enough, So I knew that, okay, no, I'm not going to study fine art per se. I think let me go for graphic design because it was the closest thing to animation, which at the time, the barrier to entry is so high because it was something so expensive to study, and also once you're done, the very little opportunities for you just to get work somewhere. And of course, I think for white people, again, maybe it's a privilege thing. It was seen as such a white thing. I don't know how to say it in a politically correct way, but it was just.
I get you. I mean, you don't have to say, because that's the challenge of this country, right? It's the level of access and the level of nuance and the understanding of things like privilege and how it impacts on someone's ability to either do what it is they're good at, or or find a longer route to that.
So I think for me, I've been I think my privileges I've been very privileged in my education and in my schooling, and I've just taken that on with me since school. So for me, graphic design just made sense. It was also something very the most affordable out of the available sort of courses in my faculty. So you'd have stuff like photography, which was more, again, it was mostly the white kids because you had to bring your own camera and it was so expensive to study. And fashion also, there was just that fear also, I think, just for my parents as well, just employment opportunities, or and the same in fine art. And graphic design was more, it was easy to point to my parents to say, if I study this is what I can do. So you'd point at billboards, you'd point at TV ads, magazine print ads, and it was a bit more, the safer bet, I think. And I'd say obviously I think I made the right choice. But I think the support of my parents, again, was so key.
Yeah, with hindsight, it's always great when you can, you look back with hindsight and kind of go, it looks like I took the right steps along the way. Because the alternative is a bit more painful, right?
Yeah. And right now I think with graphic design also, there are also other little skills you learn, and I love short form copy. I love copywriting, and it's also come through with my work. And I think my sort of cheesy sense of humor as well, I always look for ways to incorporate that into especially my self-initiated work. And so I think right now, I'm primarily a graphic designer and illustrator, but I really want to write now. I really want to write. I'm trying to publish sort of my book. Well, I'm busy writing it. I'm still figuring out how it's going to be sort of structured, but I just want it to be a learning resource, I think, just for just young black kids, young black like designers. So I think eventually my trajectory might go from being a graphic designer to, I mean, who knows, lecturer, author, but at the core, I'll always, I'll always be like a craftsman as, a creator. So yeah. And I think at my age, at 33, like you start thinking of, do I really want to do this forever? I love doing this, but is there something more, And I think that's why
you still have lots of time. Don't worry. I'm curious about because you have a kind of a very distinct style and aesthetic and way of telling stories. So I'm not surprised when you talk about, for example, writing and interest in copywriting, etc. Because your pictures are not just pictures. There's particular illustrations, particularly the ones that you regularly post on Instagram, because it's always plugged into the zeitgeist in terms of what's going on, the thinking, the energy, the spirit of it. And it ranges from the serious and the tragic to the fun and the comical and the entertainment, et cetera, et cetera. How do you approach that? I mean, is it comes to you, or how much time do you spend just kind of trying to keep up with or try to understand what's going on?
Yeah, I think I enjoy it so much because for me it's such an organic. It almost doesn't feel like work. It's such an organic way for me to create, and I think it's the best, like the best thing for any artist in any industry. Like I obviously I'm a fan of pop culture. I watch a lot of podcasts. I even love sport. I love like football. So even if something happens in that sort of area, if something major happens, if I feel like commentating on it, usually like my work, I can do that. So I'm just.
I'm still waiting for the Liverpool one. I try to. It doesn't feel like work. Me trying to keep up with everything. I just consume a lot of content. I mean, I'm always on the internet, whether I'm working or social media or like podcasts. A lot of podcasts. From semi-gossip podcasts to just hip hop to just lifestyle, everything. And sports, like I said. So, I feel like I'm always in the loop if something is trending, and I think there's also a strategic perspective of how I like do things. So I'm picky about what I want to present, because I'm still passionate about social media and just how to engage an audience and how to grow an audience. So I'm very strategic with what I say. Yeah.
So for instance, Liverpool might have made the final with Madrid, but I actually did post a Karim Benzema piece, which I knew might not trend per se, because I know not everyone necessarily follows football in my audience and stuff. So I have a lot of insight into what people like, and I know when to post what type of artwork. So yeah, I mean, what I choose to post, how I do it, it's very dependent on like what's trending, but also I have the luxury of choosing if I want to do something, because I do get busy with other stuff also. I mean, I freelance a lot, so it just depends on my schedule. But I love having an engaged audience who's always looking forward to something. It's like when you know that you have a favorite TV show and you're expecting an episode. I just enjoy that a lot. Yeah.
I mean, you talk about the strategy behind it, and I'd like you to unpack that a bit, because we're living in a time where it feels like we must monetize everything, right? But when you started, and by and large, it feels like a lot of what you create for example, Instagram over the years, it doesn't feel like it was done from okay, so how do I make money out of this specific thing? What was the thinking behind it when you started that? And just talk about how it fits into, let's call it your broader ecosystem in terms of your work and your art.
I think at the time, I would, yeah, I'd love to take the credit and say this was planned out properly, and this is how it's gonna work, and this is how successful it's gonna be. But at the time, like, I would just wanted to, I just stopped doing my Run the Whole series. So this is a series where I used to just illustrate, um, women who inspire me, women who I look up to during Women's Month, and
Mm.
I post a piece of a portrait of them every day in August, and then I just sort of profile them on Instagram. So that also sort of grew my audience, just people sort of engaging, and it was just something like unique. So at the time, I'd stopped that series because I was just getting, yeah, overloaded with, work, and I just wanted to do something different. And I think, yeah, I remember like my first piece was of Thick Leonce. She's a photographer, and
Yeah.
yeah, she's a like body positivity activist, and I've always just enjoyed her content. I've always liked the content also. So I did a piece that was the first illustration I did of her. So the word was thick, and then obviously the I in the word thick was her, a picture of herself, and there was no sort of I just I mean, at the back of my mind, I was like, okay, I hope she sees this because I tagged her, and then I hope she reposts this, and she's got a lot of followers, and I'm trying to grow my audience. So I've always been conscious of trying to grow my audience on social media because I knew the opportunities that could bring. But now my challenge was, what kind of content am I going to post to sort of
Mm.
bring those opportunities with brands? So then I did another piece of love. Yeah, it also just did fairly well. She didn't reshare, probably never saw it. Um, and then I remember it was just when Donald Trump got inaugurated for the first time, and then I did a piece on him, and that really traveled a lot. It was just even shared in a few news articles and stuff. It went very like viral, and I could already see I don't know what to call, like I could really see a sort of a golden thread forming. Like, okay, wait, when something happens that's very like topical, I can do this in my style all the time. And although the Dick Leonce piece and the Loot Love piece didn't really fit into that, but I could see what people liked, and yeah, it just kept on like developing. Yeah, I can't remember like my early pieces, but when something big happens, I share it in that style, and
Yeah.
those are like the basic principles I think of graphic design. I think it's visual communication, but now how do you, well, in 2022, like, yeah, how do you make your content engaging? Like, how do you make your art as a piece that can be consumed, as content, So after the Donald Trump thing, I saw, okay, no, the next time something happens, I'm gonna do the same thing, and then gradually my content will grow, my following would grow, and then organically brands would come to me. So I've never pitched for work for a brand. They see that work because it goes viral, so they see that I'm conscious about my followers, engagement, and building a community, and then obviously brands want to leverage on that. They want to jump on that and take me with, and it's almost like it's an actual relationship. It's we both like benefit, yeah. So that was the strategy early on. It was like, how do I grow? Yeah, how do I grow my audience? Just using my craft, my style, and consistency was the next challenge. And I think I've been quite consistent.
What's your process? I mean, let's say, what does your day look like? That's what I'm curious about. Like when you wake up in the morning, what does your day look like in terms of from a work perspective?
Sure, very manic. So I wake up at 7, I shower, and then I know by the time I open my mails, like I think my mails aren't activated on my phone because it just gets so crazy.
Mm.
I see the request for work like that I have, and I almost have to plot my week or my day. Let's say it's a Monday. I have to plot my week now with all these requests, and I'm actually trying to get a junior sort of freelance designer to help me out. So I plot what I need to do for clients. I obviously the ones, people who actually pay me regularly, people I've built solid relationships with, I almost prioritize them more. And then there are these lesser like requests where I just send out codes and invoices, and yeah, it's a bit of admin, I'd say. Obviously, yeah, it starts with admin.
Sounds like a nice problem to have.
Yeah, but it does get quiet. But then I suppose that's when I have time to just do my own stuff, just to experiment, just to update my website, my portfolio. Like I experiment a lot, and yeah, that's my day. It's literally like a 9 to 5, um, except it's freelancing for a couple of agencies. That's on and off. Um,
How important is it for creative people to understand that even when you're in the creative space, it's work? Because
I think
there's this impression that, to a certain extent that, you can just be, if you're creative, you can just be creative. But it's work. It has structure to it, and you need to approach it. You need to approach it with the same, with the same mindset as a lawyer. So maybe you're not running, 20-hour days, but at the end of the day, if that's what you do for a living, it's you need to have kind of work times. You need to have, like you talk about, you wake up at a particular point. There's a particular process to stuff outside of the actual creative work itself.
I think at the core with whatever you do, I think especially now with the advent of social media and the whole influencer thing, it's very important to be at the core to be a professional. So whatever you do, you should see it as a profession. Now, I'm pretty sure, I don't know the exact definition, but I'm pretty sure every profession, you need to get paid for the service or the product that you're selling. So even if you're a painter, yeah, you need to be inspired. Maybe you need to, whatever you need to do for your creative process, but that painting you're doing, you need to see it as a product that you need to sell. So that discipline of getting things done and trying to find clients, it might not be as exciting, but you need to see your craft as a product or a service that's you give away in return for money. So I think at the core with whatever you do, being a creative is fine, but you also, I mean, I'm sure we all need money. Even billionaires are still, there's that drive that they have to make a profit or for whatever, whether it's passion or whatever, so you need to see what you do as a profession. I suppose that's what it differs from a hobby where you just do something even though you're not trying to make any money. So see what you do as a profession. I think how you go about it, that's obviously up to you in terms of how you sort of strategize your moves. Yeah.
A couple of years ago, you had a company. Was it Sketchy or what is it called? That's it. I never know how to pronounce it. Sukechi. How did that come about, and are you still involved in it?
So I'd worked at an agency for quite some time. From 2012 to like 2016, for like 5 years actually. I don't know. Am I allowed to mention the name of the agent? Yeah. So it's called Soul Providers Collective. I was actually like the first designer there.
I actually know Sarah Jane.
Designer. Yes. So the company had just gotten a big account with a big insurance company, and then I was just the first designer on that, an illustrator, and we just built up a good relationship, and we got that retainer through my work and obviously the agency's support and everything. So I became a valuable member of the agency as it grew. And then there was a point where obviously, like any graphic designer, I think the big name agencies always seem attractive. Usually maybe because they pay more or whatever, but they just, I just told SJ, look, we've done so much here. I really enjoyed it, but now I want to go. I just want to spread my wings. And SJ was like, no, why don't we, because Soul Providers it's primarily like a digital marketing agency, but she was like, why don't we build a small graphic design boutique agency? And let's take this big client we just have now, let's move it to Sukechi, because the client won't care. The client just wants the work, whether the company is renamed or whatever, and as long as SC is still at the helm of everything. So we moved that client as Sukechi's retainer while we looked for more clients. So SC, so for me it worked in terms of I still had job security, but I'm starting a new company. The job security came from this retainer that we had. And the difference now is that I have my own company. I have majority sort of stake as a shareholder, and my business partner is actually like my mentor. So it was the perfect sort of relationship, the perfect
Yeah.
like partnership. And yeah, over time we got some major like retainers, like your MTV networks, BT, but like we got retainers that exciting work that could sustain the company. And I think I wanted to leave sole providers to go to work for someone else, but SA, because she believed in me, she was like, "You you can own your work, you can own your craft. Let's do this."
Mm.
And yeah, it worked. It was a beautiful adventure, like ups and downs, but very few downs. A lot of lessons learned also in terms of just admin and building relationships with clients, stuff that's not so maybe um exciting for a designer or creative, but soft skills that can set you up for life afterwards. So yeah, to this day, SA is still my friend. She still passes on a lot of opportunities, and we still hook up regularly. Um, so the day we closed, so Sukechi, the plan was to always eventually sell to a bigger agency.
Okay.
You know how bigger agencies, they
Yeah.
buy smaller guys with just to get their clients and whatever, and then take our cuts and just start new lives type of thing. But that never really materialized. So we just decided, you know what, where she was at her career, she was like, she's ready just for semi-retirement. And I was just like, I'm just ready. Eventually, I want Slane Goliath to be my own thing. Whereas Tuketi was a partnership between us. So yeah, we amicably went our separate ways, no
Okay.
beef or anything. We just sent out PRPCs to our client that, we closing down, but I'm still available for work. SJ's bigger company, sole providers, is also taking briefs. So in theory, nothing changes. The company is dissolving, but the people who built it and the services they offer, they're still there. So it worked out like pretty well. And I think it also helped me sort of, yeah. I mean, I bought a house, I got a car. I don't know if I would have had these things as fast if I was working somewhere, just from a financial perspective. And
You
so
started
yeah,
adulting.
yeah, literally at the right time also at like 29, 30, like, like the timing of everything just worked out like perfectly. And when we decided to close Katie, we decided before the pandemic hit. So it was like, anyway, whatever happens, you know, let's just roll with the punches. In fact,
Yeah.
we got a few more clients during the pandemic, Facebook Africa, and it was like, okay, it's a good problem to have. Let's just wrap up this work and then close down. Um, so yeah.
You are listening to the Listen to Your Footsteps podcast, a podcast in which I chat to Africans from a cross-section of society and sectors, including art, culture, design, business, and creativity, to name a few. I delve into their journeys, the decisions they've taken to get to where they are, how they do what they do, and everything in between. Essentially, we go wherever the conversation takes us. How do you decide on work? I mean, how do you decide on clients to work with? Do you take anybody, or do you have let's call it an internal criteria in terms of who you will work with and who you won't? Do you have people that you won't work with?
I think that's very hard because I still see myself as as a freelancer, as a sort of creative entrepreneur. You want to take advantage of every opportunity, but sometimes you realize by the time you started working with someone that this person is not right, so you almost have to let them down softly. Like, but I work with anyone. That I don't look if you're a big brand or small person like starting out. If you have the budget, I mean, my process is the same. The kind of work I do for a major brand, I'll do for you. So as a freelancer, I take everything. But people who aren't serious also, they just show themselves over time. Like, not that like they're not serious, but people who either can't afford or they just change their minds. Like when someone asks for a code, like you send it and you follow up, and like they don't reply. They almost sort of disappear by themselves. So I suppose I don't know how people decide to work with me because I'm literally open for everyone, but I'd never turn down anything that I'm not,
Well,
confident of.
the
So
reason I asked that question is because I mean you've built you've built equity to a certain extent, right? And you've built a professional reputation and a creative reputation. But you also have, I don't know whether that carries through to your client work, but you also have kind of a relatively distinct style. Right? So all of a sudden, if I don't know, if I'm a company that is involved in, I don't know, the oppression of people somewhere, that actually has the potential to impact on that reputation that you've built, particularly as a freelancer. Or am I looking too deeply into it?
no, not really. I think sometimes, actually, 50% of the time, people come to me. I think people come to me for generic work that you can say anyone else can do.
Okay.
Anyone else can do a very nice logo, but you'd argue it's actually better than mine. Like, but I think people come to me because they see my approach to work and they're hoping for something similar, even though it's not in my style.
Mm.
And what I do is for a specific piece that it's in my style, I build a bit more because I've seen how people will use your name to sell themselves also, that David did this for me. So because it's me, they're using my name to sell their product now. It's not just a generic logo, So that's what I've seen. There's almost an extra usage fee I put on the stuff where it's in my generic style. But if you just wanted a generic logo and a letterhead or whatever, like I'll do that. And even my fans, my followers, they might not even know that I did it, and that's totally fine. Because I think at the core, I'm still a professional graphic designer outside of what I do in my style. But obviously, the big brands and everything, they come from my style and my following and my influence. Otherwise, they just use anyone else for that thing. So these are things I'm learning to sort of plot down and see, okay, this would work if it works with my style, but does this person have the budget? So I'm still learning as I go because
That's interesting because when you talk about it, I was having a conversation with somebody recently, and I've actually had a conversation with an author, Remy, on the podcast, where I always say I'm a working writer, and people don't quite get what that means because the assumption is that if you're in in any type of the arts, literature, design, etc., there's this idea that you're being creative all the time. Whereas partly how I pay my bills is I write for companies and corporates and people, not just, not in the media, but, like I have an insurance company as a client, and I have written for business schools, and I've written for tech companies. And that's like that's my bread and butter. I call it like it's like being a mechanic. It's just that I work with words. So I think also sometimes there's this perception about the spaces that we're in, and how, the idea of slaying Goliath is that he's just being, creative all the time, and he's not going out and creating logos and brand designing and brand brand aesthetics, etc.
Mm. And I suppose I suppose the work I put, how I present myself, and to be fair, I don't blame people who sort of assume that's I just do the dynamic, exciting stuff only because that's what I mostly put out. I'm trying to think now. I don't, yeah, maybe on my beer hunts, but I don't have any sort of generic work on show anywhere online. All you see is the slang dynamic, I guess. So but I mean, it's worked for me. So I think it's something that I keep. But yeah, I think you might have sparked something like perhaps I need to present that side of myself as well. But I think I've been so comfortable where I am right now. It's just an organic way of doing things. Like
Mm.
I'd just rather put out what I really love, my personality, my style, and even boring corporates, they still come to me anyway looking for the generic stuff. So
Look, I'm a big believer. I'm a big believer in like I don't feel the need to, let's say in inverted commas, amplify what I do, like the writing and the content strategy work that I do. Let's call it for a living, right? Because my clients don't my clients don't come to me because I've put that stuff out there in the world. You know, my clients come to me in different ways. So what's important for me is that I maintain those networks from a professional and a business perspective to ensure that I continue to have clients for that side of my work. And then, you know, the other things that I do are more for me, you know?
mm, mm. Yeah, and I suppose that obviously comes with time and experience. I think knowing what works for you and what works, yeah, for your clients also or potential clients.
Mm.
So I think it's easier for us now, but I think for the younger guys, yeah, they don't have that sort of um experience and information to sort of know how to put themselves forward. So I think the biggest thing for me is just the experience that I have also. Even the boring, what's seemingly boring and corporate, the stuff like that I don't put out is I also learned the most lessons from there also because you're dealing with people, it's client management, you're dealing with so many moving parts and those soft skills also just meetings and boardrooms and you know dressing up formally now just to show up and there are so many other soft skills that I'm learning that they they improve me also, I suppose, as a person, not just as a
Yeah.
creative, just as a profession in my career. So yeah, I'm very grateful for every opportunity I have, and yeah, even the stuff I do say no to, maybe it's sometimes maybe it's just because I'm busy. I'm way too busy, but um, yeah.
How do you approach from a, let's say, a craft perspective projects like you did with KFC or that like you did with Yogi Sip, which are a bit, you know, it's a bit more than just it's infusing you, but it's a bit more than just kind of creating a logo. Like, do you have a particular approach to something like that, or you know, how do you approach that kind of work?
I think most times I'm actually it's actually a real collaboration because in most cases I actually work with an agency, but they obviously want to leverage off my name and my influence and my following and everything I've done. But they're also looking for the work, the technical, like the artwork, like
Mm.
as they would internally. But I suppose they're looking for a fresh like perspective. So what I enjoy the most with that is the freedom. Yeah, it's still crazy. Like the amount of freedom, the creative freedom I have. Um, I suppose because they come to me, I almost have that leverage just to impose what I feel should work. So I love the freedom that they give me and like the KFC three tiger thing, just that, you know, there was so much there in what three tiger means and it's South African, it's most people they don't like what it means and the artwork also it just becomes easier for me to sort of use my style also, using the three tiger in the character's hair or whatever in my typography style. So
Mm.
it becomes so easy because I have an identity and the KFC team, when they see that or the agency, they know that, oh, okay, he used his style, his font thing, but he's also incorporating elements of South Africa because it's three tiger bucket. And so it's such a nice, like, you are almost call it like a dance. Like we both work together to make it look beautiful. And it's not
Yeah.
just, yes, it's presented as like slaying Goliath, but behind the scenes, there are copywriters who like pick up little things and art directors who say, but this might mean something. I mean, my initial designs for the KFC stuff, they had cars, they had like iconic, like symbolic South African cars, you know, like like a Toyota Quantum Taxi,
Mm.
a GTI and whatever. And there'll be that insight from agency guys to be like, no, we're not sure this might work on packaging. There might be licensing issues because you can see what brand this is, and if anything, now they could be selling, they could be just helping this other brand, or and that brand might not complain, or they'll probably complain because we're using their like the likeness of their cars on packaging. So there are
Yeah.
all these stuff. There are lawyers involved in everything. They check out everything. So there's so much support. And I love how at the end the work is presented as my own. But the agency sort of steps back and just lets me shine because they also use me anyway as a tool to sell the product. And it's crazy how
But it is not. It is nice to see true collaboration, because 10 years ago, 10 years ago, this was like the conversations were being had, but most brands in South Africa would not collaborate. So if you were based in Europe or the US, you could get a collaboration. That collaboration would be sent our way, but they weren't tapping into any African, whether it's artists, etc., to actually collaborate. And it feels like it's slowly starting to pick up.
it is. And I think it helps the rise of influencer marketing agencies. It's become an industry. So it's no longer weird or a shock if an independent designer or illustrator does something for a brand. It's almost expected to some extent because there's an industry and structure around it to make sure it works properly. Like the actual agencies and the agents to make sure people like us are paid properly now, and it's really exciting. And I think obviously the advent of social media also just as a platform for all this to happen because these things can literally just be digital campaigns. It doesn't even need to be a product that you see like on the ground and on the streets. But social media, the rise of social media and platforms like Instagram, they really helped me. And I think what also helped me, I like to think I'm an early adopter. So I jumped on Instagram very quickly, like very early on, like 2011, 2012, like, and when people were sharing the holidays and the lunches and stuff on Instagram on the timeline, I was already sharing my work, and it's been so consistent over time. And by the time brands sort of jumped on to work with me, I was an authentic, content creator on the
Mm.
platforms. So even my audience can see that. Even new people who follow me and see my work, they can see that nothing is staged, and it's a collaboration with someone that started, from way back then. So I love Instagram also because you can literally see the timeline. You can see the progress and the growth and the collaborations. And so, yeah, I think adopting early has really helped me. That's why it might be a bit harder now for someone. I mean, for another illustrator, a new graphic designer, just to start doing something now and sharing that work. You almost have to prove yourself over time.
Mm. Absolutely. It needs to be organic.
Yeah, you build your name over time, and that's just consistency. Um, that's why there's just a rise of there's a group of us. I wouldn't say it's a clique per se, but there's a group of popular names in my industry who are doing very similar things to me. And I think that's one that's the that's the one sort of same thing that we have. Like we started early on platforms to share our work. Um, yeah, so it's been an organic journey for me, and I think that's what brands see as well, and that's what people see when they come to me for potential work opportunities. Yeah.
You did a whole exhibition with merchandising around. I think it was that women campaign you're involved in, and like I loved your couch and like there's the t-shirts, etc., etc. Uh, would you ever do that again? Was it a once-off? What was the thinking behind that?
I think I've always like my work was purely digital. I can't remember the last time I printed something for someone in terms of my style. Like I would just send it digital or whatever, and I tell them you can print this yourself, you can print it yourself. So
Mm.
even the way I do my work, it lives for like digital to be consumed there, to be reshared. It's I've never I've the pandemic also, yeah, obviously just forced whatever ideas people like might have had. It just sort of squashed those. But I think my idea with the couch and the merchandise, the t-shirts, I just wanted to share my work in a different, for it to live in as a physical product in like physical spaces. And yeah, one thing I can say that doing t-shirts or merch, it's actually not. It's not as easy as it looks. Um, there's a yeah, yo, there's a you need to know your stuff. You need to know the shirts, the threading, the like yeah, it's
I'm busy. I'm busy. I've been working on my range for years now, but actively for the last 4 months. So I know what you're saying. There's so much detail involved in it.
like I'm always saying, you can a shirt with a very bad design, it can still do really well. Because so it's not necessarily about the design on it, but it's whatever your distribution channels you have, where you're selling it, and obviously it helps if you're an established brand or a name. Sometimes people will buy something because it's your name on it. That's but the logistics of getting a t-shirt into someone's hands and you actually making a profit of it um consistently over it's like it's not that easy. So that's what I saw firsthand. And I suppose the limited edition collectible stuff is almost an easy win. It's an
Mm.
easy way out for me if I were to do that again. Um, and with the couch, yeah, there was a collaboration with the brand. There was a collaboration with I think Styling Trades, and yeah, they literally just gave myself and a few other creatives a bulk of money just to do an exhibition in a physical space with our work, like inspired by the brand.
Okay.
So I just thought instead of framing all my pieces, why not just put them all on a couch where people can actually sit there and chill, and then there was just a screen with like showreel of just my other work as well. So I made my work become an actual, almost like an immersive experience where you could actually feel it and touch it and see it in a different light. So yeah, I ended up sitting in the couch for like yeah, it because it actually couldn't fit into my place. The way the size couldn't fit into my door, so I just sold it to a friend. But yeah, I'm always thinking of different ways to say my work. I think that's why now I'm just trying to start this book, and it's going to be like the backstories and my processes and just the stuff you're talking about now, but in in a physical thing, which is like a book. So I think that's my next challenge right now.
So beyond that, what does tomorrow look like? I mean, do you have anything in the pipeline that you're kind of going, this is the other things that I want to explore?
Sure. I think my dream is literally just to get paid to go, just to do talks at agencies, at schools, just to talk about my journey and just for people to use my story and what I've done as a starting point, not necessarily a Bible on how to do things, but and just get paid for it. Um, like I don't want to have to design and illustrate to make a living. Like I want that to be like I want to do that because I just enjoy it. And that's probably the dream for like 80% of artists. Like,
Mm.
because yeah, the reality of the world we live in, you still need that security. But yeah, I just want to go around schools, varsities, just talk about my journey. And if I don't get paid for it, but then for it to have actual value to someone else's life. And that's the kind of legacy I want. I think, um, yeah,
Out of curiosity, who are your favorite designers? Do you have some favorite designers?
actually my peers, people I love Cindy Sonyoni. He's from Zim, but he's based in South Africa. I love his stuff. He's an illustrator as well, but his stuff is so I don't know, it's so considered. And he doesn't do a lot, but when he does something with the brand, it's always huge. And I also that's what I aspire to as well, just to do less, but money wise, for it to sort of just, you feel okay, yeah, I don't need to do a million things to make money. Like, I just do a few crafted things. I also love Justice Mukeli, one of the twins from I Say Different New. I actually always confuse them with Rendan. Like, I like both of them myself.
Yeah, I also confuse them, but both of them do great stuff. But it's always hard to know who's who.
Yeah, because I remember when I started working in sole providers, I actually inboxed him on Facebook, Justice. Like, I was trying to get into like photography, and I sent him a few of my stuff, and I asked him to please can you just give me pointers or like whatever. And he just told me, because I had a few photos that I did in black and white, and it was like, no, like when you start shooting in color first, just perfect that, and then when you get experience, you'll know when to shoot in black and white, because you have to know what you're trying to communicate or achieve, and a photo has to look perfect when it's unedited. And so he gave such sort of insightful, meaningful advice, and it was so, you could see he made the time to look at the stuff and give feedback. And it's crazy how 10 years later we ended up, now we're working, we worked on the same campaign for like Converse. We did like sneakers for the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund, like proceeds of the sales would go to them. And so industry wise, we almost seen in the same circle, but I still look up to him. So that's why I'll always appreciate him, because like early on when I had just nothing to my name in the industry, he made the time to help me out. Like Nelson Makamo, just in the way, just how he's just international now. He's gone. But there's still that authentic South African crafted sort of feel to his work. And Karabo Poppy as well. She's also a designer, illustrator. We've been on a few projects also together, and I think it's just, as a young black woman, I think it's really great that there's someone that other young women, like female designers, sort of look up to. I just love her style. Also, she's very consistent, and there's a lot of like mutual respect amongst the people I've mentioned, and we know each other. There's that respect, there's that support also. So that's what I appreciate. That the people I really look up to, I have access to. As well. Yeah. And you as well.
I don't draw anything. I just write words, man.
No, man. I think you represent an era. I don't know. I don't want to make you sound old now, but
well, I just turned 50, so I don't. I'm very comfortable with how old I am.
I think before I came to I'm not sure when you came to Joburg, but before I came to Joburg, I think from buying like Y Mag and Hype magazine at the time, and when you're not living in Joburg and you see it on TV and in like magazines, and when you aspire to that life and like living there, like there's this golden era, man, and especially in SA hip hop as well. The way I feel, like your Mariah McCloy's, like your Label Masiles, there was this golden era, not necessarily in hip hop, but just in South African music, where it was just bubbling. Like, it's very hard for me to describe it, but probably 2006, 2007 maybe, because I remember I was still in high school. But I think you also represent just that golden era of the arts in our country, and I just think it sucks at the time there was no I guess the media wasn't as, I suppose, maybe developed, maybe just to sort of put you guys out there,
No, thank you, but there've been interesting conversations around that, around basically, I guess it doesn't matter where you are, but there's always those who, let's say, there's always those who lay the foundation for others to come and benefit in different ways. But it's a natural part of, let's call it, it's a natural part of life and the trajectory. And I guess it becomes difficult depending on how you interpret it. But Yeah, it was an interesting era, and I've had a couple of people on the podcast. Like I've had Zubs on the podcast,
Yeah, that
and we all come from kind of that period. Even Wandi, and I always appreciated the thing that you did for Wandi after he passed away, because Wandi and I, like, those are the conversations that we used to have, because everything was integrated. It didn't matter what scene you came from, because it was so small and because it was growing. We kind of all knew each other or knew of each other.
mm. Yeah, so it was very, it was just that, it was just golden, and just Newtown, and obviously the places aren't the same now. Like the spaces are aren't the same. Like,
Yeah.
and but I suppose, like you're saying, now I'd like to be that part of that new like generation who sort of lays the groundwork now for the next level of creatives. Because I think at 33, I probably have like a year or two left to be considered a young designer. But at 33 now, I'm getting more campaigns where it's like the winner, I need to mentor someone as a prize, so I'm getting less young, whatever, creative things, and more just an established designer. So you're right. I suppose it's a natural progression, because people do grow and the others need to also come through, like, after us. So
Sure. No doubt. But thank you, man. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. This was really cool.
The Listen to Your Footsteps podcast is produced by Zebra Culture. If you have ideas of what we can do better, people you'd like us to have a conversation with, or would just like to share a thought, you can email me on info@zebraculture.com. To check out past episodes, go to kojobuffer.com/podcasts. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share with a friend. If you'd like to get a copy of the book, Listen to Your Footsteps, check out kojobuffer.com/book. There are details on the various spaces it's available at. I'd also appreciate it if you could leave a review or comment wherever you listen to your podcasts. Finally, there's the Zebra Culture by Kojo Buffer newsletter, where on a weekly basis, I share a curated list of articles, playlists, videos, etc. that have caught my attention. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed listening to the conversation as much as I enjoyed having it.